Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the New Law Careers Series with our focus on legal ops. As with the first episode in this series, absolutely delighted to reintroduce Molly Tregillis to you. Hi, Molly.
Hi, everyone.
As you can see on the slide in front of you, Molly is the Director, Legal Optimisation Consulting at Minter Allison. This has been just a fabulously received series, so really excited about having done episode 1, which was kind of looking at the role of a legal ops professional, and now jumping straight into episode 2, which is really answering that question about when or if and who you need to employ as your legal ops professional. A reminder also that episode 3 will be our international panel, which Molly will be facilitating for us, looking at challenges and opportunities. So really bringing a nice conclusion to this 3-episode focus on legal ops. So with all of that said, welcome to all of you as well. Really delighted to see you back, or really delighted to see you for the first time in this series. So with all of that said, I'm going to go off screen and hand it over to Molly, but I'll be lurking in the background and we'll come back towards the end to have a bit of a chat about that Q&A session. Thanks again, Molly. Over to you.
Thanks, Terry, and thanks everyone for joining. Great to see the interest in these sessions. It's really exciting, and it proves our theory that legal operations is just on the up and up, particularly in this, in the Australian market. So last session, for those of you who weren't able to join, was a sort of overview of legal operations, and as Terry mentioned, that's available for you to have a look at as well. This is sort of the next stage, which is talking about the profession of legal operations. So as you can see, the title is, Do I Need a Legal Operations Professional, and How Do I Find a Good One? I'll just go through what we'll talk about, but just to zoom back for a minute, I think what's important to say is this is really trying to cover the field for all kind of sizes and shapes of legal teams. And I'm conscious that what we're talking about, it probably sits somewhere in the middle of big and small size in-house and law firm teams. So what we do try and talk about in that scalable approaches section is, what does it look like to have someone called a legal operations professional if you don't have necessarily resources for a full headcount? So I'll go into that a bit to hopefully give a sense that this is something that's potentially available in some form to all legal teams. What we're going to run through a bit is, do I need a legal ops professional, or does my team need one? Who are these people? What do they do, and why are they important? And hopefully those that attended the last session have drunk the legal ops Kool-Aid. So there's a sense of understanding the value of legal ops and now what a professional in this area could bring. And then a little bit of a discussion around the skills and the qualifications, or lack thereof at the moment, available for people that want to study in this area. What to do if you're looking at this, or you want to dip your toe in the water for a smaller team or where there's tight resources. And then just some discussion around what is a legal ops superstar. And I've got a set of sort of personas I've developed based on real life, but with name changes, around how you might spot someone that would be fabulous in one of these roles. As Terry mentioned, loved the questions last time, so please feel free to throw them in, and we'll try and get through as many as we can at the end. So first up, do I need a legal ops professional? My answer would probably be yes, but this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. There is what we mean by legal ops professional may look very different in a range of circumstances, but broadly we're seeing a really big growth in legal teams recognizing the value of having someone with a specific focus on legal operations and innovation and technology. And I'll talk a little bit more as we go through about the benefits of having someone who's extracted from the legal doing, to have a focus in this area. So, to think about, why do I need someone in this area? We did cover off this, and this is a little bit of a refresher from the last session around what's going on in the industry that means that these people, are really a valuable resource. So all the same things we talked about last time around why is legal ops important. A legal ops professional can support challenges in any of these areas. So whether it's around the capacity and resourcing challenges of a team, this idea of the Great Resignation, so what's going on with team engagement, how do you keep good people? How does a legal team manage its technology, either implementing and procuring new technology or leveraging what it has? Where there's a rapidly changing business that a legal team's in, how do you face into that as a legal team and be strategic and commercial in your approach? Then this, ever-changing risk and regulatory landscape. How is the legal team ready? What processes and structures does it have in place for potentially a new regulatory regime or to maintain compliance? Doing more with less, it's a little bit of a trite saying, but I suppose a key focus of a legal ops professional is to look at ways to create efficiency so you can actually do more with less if that is the desire of the team. And then shifting expectations of what does it mean to be a legal team? How are the legal team being strategic, commercial in their approach? And in my view, a good legal ops professional is focused on that as well. Just to sort of really ram it home, the constant theme at the moment is change in the legal profession. Some of the things we talk about, there's this huge industry and digital disruption continuing to shake things up. There's a real expectation that there's a shift in the way that legal services are delivered and that traditional approaches are starting to get really questioned. And then optimization and continuous improvement, that's CI's continuous improvement, are starting to be, seen as really core features of a legal function. And we see a big uptake in the last few years in that language of having a continuous improvement plan within a legal team. And a legal ops professional is really there to help build, support, and drive forward a plan like that. And then also this idea of multidisciplinary teams. And we see where there's legal teams where it's not just a big bench of legal, often maybe with one admin support. So thinking about what is a legal team structure, what's the multidisciplinary needs of this team. And then this, real demand for increased transparency and the digitisation of workflow. These are all things that legal ops professionals are sort of live and breathe and a reason to think about their value in your organisation. I just put this quote in around, after you've done something the same way for 2 years, look over it carefully. After 5, look at it with suspicion. And after 10, throw it away and start all over, which to me sort of represents that continuous improvement mindset. And as I'll keep talking about, from our perspective, is a key element that a legal ops professional does bring. Just to zoom back, and this was a definition I shared last time, which is the Corporate Legal Operations Consortium's definition of legal operations. So it's a set of business processes, activities, and the professionals that enable legal departments to, serve their clients more effectively, etc. So just highlighting there that part of the core definition of legal ops is the professionals that work in that area. I actually found this really nice summary from the College of Law around what typically does the role entail. So, talking about sitting at that intersection of legal services and other disciplines inside a service-based organisation, or even if that service-based organisation is in fact a law firm, and pulling in all these different sort of disciplines around project management, technology, systems, process, expertise, etc. And I love this next bit, well-versed in critical thinking, business analysis, program design, and change management, which, as I keep talking about, really critical and important skills these professionals bring. So the role of these legal ops professionals is to reimagine how legal services are delivered to suit contemporary needs. So this summary is a really great one to kind of encapsulate not only the value of what legal operation professionals bring, but why they're needed at the moment. At a more basic level, I shared this slide last time, or this picture. This guy with the arrow, he's a legal ops professional. So he's saying, hey guys, how about some wheels instead of squares? So standing outside the doing and looking over it with a critical eye and supporting the team to deliver better. Also, as we shared last time, but just to put up again, this person may not be called a legal ops professional. So the set of skills they will bring, and I will talk in a bit more detail about what some of those skills might be. They could have a whole range of other names, but they are working within a legal operations discipline. So thinking about why legal ops professionals are important and the value they bring, everything we spoke about last time hopefully sold the story of why legal ops is really valuable in legal teams. What the legal ops professionals do, and so I spoke to our Chief Digital Officer, Gary Adler, who built, one of the sort of leading legal ops functions early. He was an early adopter of legal ops and saw that you needed leadership roles in this area. And it's really sold Mintrell on investing heavily in this area. So I sort of asked him why, what was the success and the reasons for that? And he said, it's creating these really senior roles first and foremost, and the skill set these people brought around process, people, and technology, which meant that there's this conduit between the legal team, so the practice areas, and then those pain points that the legal ops professionals were able to identify. So what they've done, having this team in this way, is improve the ability to deliver legal services, and then look at a whole range of exciting tools, say, you know, from legal project management to complex AI, to really support our legal teams. And I think what was important and different about the approach was that identifying the senior legal ops roles. So this is people that have been in leadership positions elsewhere coming over and having that standing to really influence the way work was done. Clock also has a really nice summary around the benefits of having legal ops professionals. And I would say that when I read this, it's completely aligned with what we would say are some of the key areas. So, you know, really focusing on those legal operations efforts in legal teams that are going to have impact, rather than having, you know, a big bucket of projects, which is often something we see. There's 25, 50 projects, initiatives that are running with no real focus on prioritization or which ones are going to have the greatest impact. Then ability to bring real measurement of value. So bringing metrics, the discipline of data and metrics into a legal function, and having this sort of time and focus to dedicate to gathering the data to sell the story of the legal team to the broader business. And then again, you know, this idea of the dedicated resourcing. So anything where you've got someone sitting in the role with a particular mandate to look across the portfolio of work and understand, right, where is money being spent? What are our resources doing? What value are they creating? How can we improve that? Which then leads to this example, and this is obviously more of an in-house example, but still very valid, having more productive partnerships with external vendors, because there is that strategic approach to management of external support. Then the alignment of tools with optimal business processes, managing diverse teams, so it goes back to that multidisciplinary point. And then ensuring, and this is, you know, a big one that needs to be called out, allowing the legal professionals to really focus on the legal work and reducing the time that they're spending on work that, you know, is outside of legal, that could be done more effectively by someone with the expertise in that area, i.e. a legal ops professional. And going to that point around really ramping up the data analytics functionality to ensure that the metrics are valuable. And of course, this critical piece about being a key focus person on technology implementation. As I think I mentioned last time, one of the things we see time and time again in clients is, you know, we have good tech. Either we have good tech, but no one's using it properly, or we need technology, but we don't know what we need. And in both cases, there's a very significant role for a legal ops professional to understand the needs and support procurement and implementation of the right technology to suit the needs. Just a case study, and this is from a piece of work we've done fairly recently with an in-house legal team of around 40 people. What we recognised there was some of the things that I've described in the last two slides. This team, very, very busy, completely under the pump, not uncommon for legal teams, had this recognition that they wanted to be a team that was continuously improving, and had done the work to identify what they wanted to do to improve. But they had this initiative list of about 40 initiatives, and these had been allocated out to the senior legal team members, who were also the ones that were the busiest on other legal work. There was pressure from the business to deliver better or faster, make decisions more quickly, be more transparent in the way they were working. And this sort of led to a bit of a pressure cooker situation where the continuous improvement work wasn't getting done. The business was getting frustrated with the legal team, and it just led to this sort of perfect storm in some ways. So one of the recommendations that we provided to them was to hire a head of legal operations, and for this person to be in a leadership role, so directly reporting into the GC, but also ideally having their own relationships with the broader business to enhance the reputation of the legal function. What we said in that case is that there'd be some key, responsibilities around really the ability to robustly challenge the status quo. And this is probably a really important piece of work that legal ops professionals can do, is ask why. Why are we doing things in the way we're doing them? I've noticed X. Why is that the case? Is there a way I could support you to do that better? Then, as I said, getting some real project methodologies around that continuous improvement framework and planning, so that when there is a piece of work that needs to be done in that space, there's a project focus on it, but also an understanding of the change management requirements for any change in a legal team and having that particular legal lens on change. Then ensuring that with a more strategic focus, so what is the work that's high value, high risk that we need to focus on, allowing there to be some greater efficiencies within the team because they're not always getting bogged down in the lower value work that could potentially have, say, some automation or some other elements behind it. Then when there is new systems and platforms to support implementation, as I managed a critical piece of the puzzle, and really applying that client focus lens. So one of the things we see quite often when we're doing, for example, diagnostics with in-house legal teams, but also more broadly, lawyers are so busy, and when anyone gets that busy, you just want to get the next deliverable done. And I think sometimes that means is it a lost sight of the broader client focus. So one of the things a legal ops professional can do is bring that back and say, is this serving the best interests of our client? And then, of course, having oversight over workflow, prioritization and self-service mechanisms. One of the things that comes up so regularly in discussions we have is the challenges in tracking workflow and the capacity of the team. So developing some mechanisms and having responsibility to do that as well. Another way of sort of describing what do, other than those responsibilities, what do legal operations professionals actually do? And it's the connection piece. So they're looking at who are the right people, what are the best practice processes, and what technology do we need to do a whole range of great things around delivering consistently, working harder, smarter, not harder, and then better managing workloads and workflow, as I mentioned, having really delighted customers. So that client focused lens, really ramping up the way the work's delivered. Really importantly, managing risk and reducing costs where that's appropriate. I think we really try and make clear that in our mind, legal ops is not a headcount cutting function. It's really there to amplify the way the team's working and work out what resources are really needed for what work. In this great resignation time, it's critical to think about retention. Most people we speak to have many jobs open. So it's not a matter of being worried necessarily about the headcount. It's about how do we keep our good people and keep them satisfied and working well. And then, of course, really, having digital at the forefront of everything that the team's doing. This is there's a lot on this slide, so I'm not necessarily going to dive into it in a whole lot of detail, but I just wanted to share it because one of our head of legal operations designed this. She's obviously, an artist, has a very good eye. When she came to Minter's in a legal ops role to get us to try and get a head around the feedback loops and what internally we do or what our legal operations team does. And in my mind, it still holds true. So I just wanted to share it quickly to give a sense of how it works in Minter Ellison. So I know the text's quite small, so I'll just run through it from 1, 2, 3, 4. So in our case, we have a head of legal operations embedded in each of our lines of business. So there's this feedback loop of people from within the business bringing ideas to the legal ops team, but the legal ops team also bringing ideas to the business units. That gets them sort of triage through a funnel to number 2, where recognising who are the people in our expert legal service operations team, those subject matter experts who are actually going to develop a solution, and working to coordinate who that sort of agile project team will be for a particular project. Going to 3, the legal ops team deliver solutions back to the business, keep iterating those solutions and working out how to make something business as usual, and then identifying new opportunities, and then the loop continues around. So for me, that was just quite a neat way to explain what can sometimes be quite lengthy and complex processes for supporting the Minter Ellison lines of business with legal operations. To make this really simple, in my mind, basically the role of a legal professional is in this translator role. So you've got the business on the one hand and subject matter experts on the other. This can go 2 ways. So this could work if you're talking about delivering some technology to the business with IT experts, so that the translator role is speaking some tech, speaking some legal. But similarly, that translator role can sit between the business and the legal team to say, this is what's strategically important. this is what the commercial considerations are for the broad organisation at the moment, and here's how we're going to use them to focus our ways of working as a legal team. And a little bit later, I'll talk about some of the skills I see as really valuable for people that are in that translator role. So some signs that you might need is an interesting word, but it would be beneficial to have a legal ops professional in your team. So, the first one's a bit tongue-in-cheek, you have a legal team. In our mind, there is always a role to play for legal ops in a legal team, but as I discuss in a moment, that there's some scalable ways to do that. But, if you look at some of the benchmarking studies around, once you get to more than about 7 to 10 people in a legal team, there's a recognition of value of having a legal ops person in the team in some capacity. Some of the other markers are, as I mentioned with that example earlier, that there's some improvement initiatives that are required and either, haven't been able to be brought to fruition or are underway or stalled in some ways, often due to a lack of resources and attention being able to be put to them. Where there's technology needs that aren't being met, I'm yet to talk to a legal team where this isn't true. So it suggests to me that a lot of teams would benefit from that legal ops professional. And then, we look at how teams are going in these 6 areas. So around their strategy, the team dynamic, resources, delivery, that sort of efficiency piece, technology and data, and really where a team's sort of got some opportunities for real growth in any of those areas or particular challenges. There's, I think, benefit in having someone with that legal ops mindset coming in to support. Another one we see often is where the team leaders, so, the GC or the senior legal team members, are juggling all the elements of the practice. So, and this I think is obviously still quite common, where they're doing all the core people management, managing at the end of the day, responsible for all the legal risk management, all the operational decisions, and then also the liaison point or the conduit to the broader business. It's a lot for one person and on one plate. And I think, when we talk about the legal ops roles being that in a leadership position, sitting near or alongside, reporting into the GC to help with some of those really key strategic pieces that the GC is responsible for. Where, and again, a common one, particularly after the last few years, but legal teams are change fatigued or discouraged by previous failed projects. So let's say there was, a bit of a win to get a bit of technology in that the team needed, but it wasn't implemented maybe with the focus it needed, and therefore the technology is deemed to be a fail or a failed project, which suggests that having that expert pair of eyes on the future projects would be really valuable. Where the organisation is undergoing major transformation, but the legal team is sort of being a bit left behind. We've seen examples in big banks, for example, or financial institutions that are going fully agile, and legal teams sort of required to think about what that means for them. The constant pressure to reduce costs despite work ever increasing. This is very common. So one of the things here is, well, if your resourcing budget is stagnant, you're not going to get more resources. What else can you do? You can create efficiencies, or you can do less work, or be strategic about the work you do. A legal ops professional can come in to support analysis of all that and work out what the way forward is. And then finally, there's a recognised resourcing pressures, as in everyone on the team would say we are at capacity, we are slammed, but there's no ability to really track or manage it. So there's not a report that says everyone's working at 150%, therefore we need to change something. So how to get that data, how to track and manage capacity to ensure, first of all, people aren't getting to that point, but secondly, that there is a sort of paper trail to ensure that if discussions need to be had about more resources, the information's there. So what qualifications do we see or does a legal ops professional need? At the moment, and this is, I'd say, watch this space, moving feast, there's not a specific training pathway available. Although I would say that when we look at the grad programs around, there is an uptick in legal operations graduate programs, and in that there's training there, but it's sort of focused on the job practical training. We're not yet seeing a really focused legal ops specialties in, say, law degrees or outside of that. But I would say in the next 12 months that will change. I think legal industry experience in some form is important, but that absolutely doesn't have to be having a law degree or having worked as a lawyer. I think if you speak to anyone in these roles, what they would say is, for whatever reason, there's just something special, weird and unusual about working with lawyers. And the change management requirements and the way projects are run, it is different. It simply is different for whatever reason. I'm sure we can have a whole lot of discussion about why that might be. But what we see is if people come over from other industries, absolutely it can be done. Absolutely, of course it can. But there's this learning curve around expectations of how things will go and then seeing how it works in reality in a legal team. And so there's a little bit of a kind of adjustment gap that happens there. So getting the head around the legal element of it's quite important. But as I say, you know, it's pretty qualification agnostic, and there's real benefits both for those that have law degrees or without. And in the panel session that's running at the third episode in the series, one of the head of legal ops has not got a law degree, and we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits in both ways. So hopefully that will be useful for you as well. So there's a range of other useful degrees. This is certainly not a complete list. For example, I don't have anything about technology there, but psychology, STEM, business, communications, HR all bring a lot of value to these programs. And then the other piece I would say is this is really an area where those certifications, which are often, say, a week or a couple of week courses that can be done, really do add an edge. So design thinking is a big part of what everyone's working with, and they're sort of a foundational piece. I would say that's at the back of a lot of legal ops professionals' minds when they're working. Agile PM is very valuable. It's often the way that projects are run. And then Lean Six Sigma. So any of that process review work that's done, we see, you know, there's a lot of value in that Lean Six Sigma experience. And then other things like organizational design and change management, also really valuable skills to bring forward. I mentioned earlier around, you know, this role as a translator, and this is one of my sort of pet topics around, if you take a step back, put aside degrees, put aside, you know, the type of person, the level, etc. What are some of the things that make people work well as in legal ops land? And I would say that this is specifically in those client-facing legal ops roles, so where you're directly interfacing and supporting the legal team, rather than the more technical roles, where they're bringing a particular skill set. So, you know, going around this, I think in terms of being empathetic, one of the traps I sometimes see people fall into is that they're saying, oh, the legal team this, or, you know, it's almost an us and them mentality around silly old legal team aren't doing X, and I've been telling them till I'm blue in the face and they're not getting it. And I think if we miss that point that we are here to support the legal teams, and with that need to be deeply empathetic to the very often very significant loads of work they have and the high stress that comes with their job, really challenging to do this work well. I also think, you know, that empathy, obviously a key piece in the design thinking methodology, which is, you know, really putting yourself in the shoes of the person you're solving a problem for and saying, what actually is the issue here? Often not the issue that someone's going to come and say is the issue. What's actually going on? Why is there change resistance? Or why is this person keep coming and asking me this question? I feel like I'm giving them the answer, but it's clearly not what they're actually asking. So sort of looking behind what a person's saying or how a person's acting and understanding, okay, actually what's going on. They're worried that if I automate everything, they're going to lose their job, for example, is really important to kind of get that balance right. Optimistic. So if someone's cynical about the legal industry, I feel like you're going to really struggle in legal ops land. I think we have to be the people that keep seeing exciting futures for our lawyers and for ourselves and for the industry as a whole. So that black hat mentality of, you know, it's all going downhill, you know, like law firms are, you know, not going to exist in 20 years or whatever it is, everything's going to be outsourced. No, don't agree. But also I think keeping that momentum and that, you know, that positive energy up around how we can help and support and change is really important, because it can be quite infectious in a really good way. Then I think being astute. So this is almost, I would say, kind of reading play. So, being able to walk into a room and understanding, okay, there's some dynamic going on here that means that the discussion I think everyone's having is not the discussion that's actually going on. But also, I think being really clever about, being strategic, sharp, intelligent. Lawyers have such high expectations of themselves and those around them. So we need to be able to meet them at where they're at and, have the answers to their questions, feel we are on the same page and the same level, and respond to any issues, queries, challenges in that really calm, intelligent, strategic way. I think we need to be brave because we are often pushing the envelope. We're often asking people to trust us to do something new or different or challenging that will make their lives better, but they've got to trust us. So trust is critical, and for us, being brave to suggest new ideas and take the leap forward. And then finally, nimble. Like, I think, when I see the projects we all work on, they never ever, I mean, this is probably true of any project, but they never go from A to B to C, ever. There's always A point 1 C, bounce, going around in a circle, coming back. So I think just being able to move with how things are rolling and still see the progress that's occurring, even if it seems quite circular, and just being able to shift courses quickly is really important as well. So I think, if I take a step back, if you're, say, looking to get into this industry and you feel you tick those boxes, I think you're ready. But if you're looking for someone to do a job for you in this kind of area, I think you could kind of park qualifications, prior work history to some extent. It's about the people. It's the people in these roles and what they bring in a soft skills sense that's really critical. I put this up last week, or when the last session was, but just as a refresher, that, this is the toolkit that a legal ops professional can bring and draw on. There's a lot here, but often you might find that someone has specialties in some of these areas. And one thing to distinguish, I suppose, is when I'm talking about a legal ops professional in this sense, as I said before, is that client-facing legal ops role. But those people need to have enough of an understanding of the toolkit to be able to sell it in and understand when it's needed. Not necessarily have the whole skill set, because that would be almost really impossible for one person to have. But, in our own example at Minter Ellison, we have the legal service operations team, as I mentioned, who are the experts in these areas. Our client-facing or forward-facing legal ops professionals know when a problem is actually a process review problem and know who to talk to and understand the process sufficiently to share it with the legal team and bring in the right people. So it's just that ability to draw on, know who the people are that you can access and where you can access the skills you require if you don't have them yourself. As I flagged, conscious that for a lot of people, this isn't necessarily a case of going, great, I've got the ability or budget to now hire a dedicated resource. I mean, it's pretty rare unless there's a whole lot of things that kind of shifted, or the organisational legal functions wanting to push forward with a legal ops agenda to be in that position. So just thinking about how to scale this, the first thing that can happen that's really beneficial is to upskill the legal team. So what is legal ops? How can the legal team themselves start having that continuous improvement mindset and frameworks? And I know I said that part of what we need to do, or the benefit of a legal ops person, is taking it off the legal team's plates. But let's say you've got a small legal team, 3 people in a small in-house team, and there's not a sense that you're going to get a dedicated resource. Well, it better than nothing is having a team that is savvy about legal ops, for example, knows when they might need to access external resources for a legal ops project, or bring someone in on a, secondment or something to push something forward. But otherwise, they're just thinking about their work with that critical eye over it. Like, is this servicing my client's needs? Is it done in the most efficient way? Could this be improved? That in itself is a really valuable set of skills for the legal team to have, and can go a long way, particularly in a smaller team. Then I think the next sort of stage is, let's say you've got a slightly larger legal team, or you're sort of finding a literacy around legal ops is really increasing or improving in the legal team is working at some internal champions. So I think going back to that translator skill set, I would say in most organisations there's people hiding in plain sight who love this stuff. They just click with it. And I say if you talk to any legal ops professional, they feel like they've happened upon this amazing, secret, wonderful job that exists, because if you love it, it loves you, if that makes sense. We all love this job. We're very passionate about it. So you'll find there's probably people that are champing at the bit to have the opportunity to run a project. And they could come from they could be a paralegal, they could be someone's assistant, they could be, a third-year lawyer, a senior associate, whatever it is, that they may be the people that you can leverage and recognise that part of their role is pushing forward a legal ops agenda. If you want to build that out a little bit more, developing a working group. So for a bigger team where you've got a few champions that are interested in pushing forward agenda, have a working group team that works on this with some strategies. So setting a legal ops strategy, working on some small sprint projects to get things moving. If you want to scale up again, one way to manage it, there's challenges with this, but is allocating a percentage of someone's role to a legal ops role. I say that there's certainly benefit in doing that if that's the best option. If you've got someone, say, with capacity or interest, or you're wanting to develop them in a certain way, but you can't necessarily manage a full resource, there's value in that. What I would say is it just needs to be really clear that their mandate and role and what hats they wear, and that there's the ability for them to split their time sufficiently, because one of the things we do see with people that are in those split roles is that the other bit of job, or the BAU, or the thing that's hot button, is going to consume the legal ops part. So it's not to say it can't be done, it's just the way that it's managed. And then, then you've got hiring dedicated resources, and that's exciting for teams that are in that position. I think then the challenge is finding the right person, because, and I'll give some examples of what those people might look like, because it's still a pretty small market in Australia of people that are called head of legal ops or legal ops managers. As I said, they may have different names, or they may need to be sort of brought in laterally from other roles. Other options, of course, are secondments. So, law firms with big legal ops functions may be able to offer secondments, or may be able to offer a lawyer with legal ops sort of mentality and some training to kickstart the legal ops program of works in an organisation. Can outsource, so get someone, consultant, drop in a head of legal ops role for a while, or run a certain project. And then, another really important thing is thinking about mentoring. So we spoke to a legal ops manager a couple of days ago, and are going to connect her up with someone that's sort of in a similar position, but say a year ahead in their planning, so that they can share notes. Obviously, CLOC and the industry associations is another really valuable place to access information. There's so much information there. Places like the Centre for Legal Innovation as well, to draw on if you can't actually have a dedicated resource. Just wanted to give an example, for people or legal teams that are recognising that there's potentially a need for legal ops, but aren't quite sure how to sell the case to get the headcount, because obviously this is not cheap, right? Like, you're asking for another headcount. I just wanted to give just an example of the type of things that could be incorporated in a business case to try and speak in the language of the business to get that headcount. So let's say, for example, and some of these stats are based on real life, so it's not all just, I haven't plucked all this from there. Let's say you've got a 30-person legal team with 28 legal professionals. At the moment, and this data is actually based on diagnostic we did recently, each of the legal professionals is doing 10 hours of admin a week and 4 hours on what they call legal ops or innovation tasks. So it's 14 hours of their week spent on that non-legal work. Some of the other challenges this team's facing: stretched resources, low morale as a result, and frustration from internal clients due to turnaround time. So let's say you bring in a legal ops professional. The legal ops professional recognises that through a few options around some improvement projects, potentially some automation as well, and reduction of the tasks that are of lowest value that team can push back to the business. This number drops down to 9 hours a week per legal professional. If you do the maths on that, this is basically a saving in a year of 3.5 FTE. And what that means, you can see how that can start to be a compelling business case, because you're only asking for 1 FTE, but you're saying this person's going to come in and save 3.5 FTE just by virtue of reducing some of the admin load. And, other things, increase morale, improve retention, because there's someone with a focus on reducing the kind of frustrations in people's roles, and also improve client experience, because you're reducing, again, the time people are spending on the non-legal work and allowing them to focus more on the legal work. So I think, doing the maths on the potential of a legal ops professional is a really valuable thing for teams to do, because I think quite quickly, it doesn't have to be a big shift in having that person, big shift in hours saving, for example, to make a big difference to argue the case. I just wanted to paint a picture of the type of, this is based sort of partly on reality and then some fiction, but all, amalgam of people we know and love in the industry, around where might these people be hiding, what might they be doing at the moment, or where might you look for people that would be superstars in legal ops. So we've got Alex. Alex is a real person. I think she's on this call. Hello, Alex. Had a legal degree but never practiced, working in client and marketing roles, loves data, super smart, loves solving problems for clients. Perfect person for legal ops. And I can say, and Alex, if you're on the call, probably nodding, loving it, loving being in a legal ops role from a marketing role. Then we've got Tom. So Tom's an HR professional, really excited by legal ops, working in a law firm, for example, and hearing a lot about it, helping recruit for it. Tom has, just by virtue of the way his brain works, implemented a whole lot of tools in his own job to make it easier, and is also, obviously for an HR person, really good with people. Someone like Tom, be awesome at legal ops. Rika is a senior lawyer with 15 plus years experience, including overseas, and is really ready for a shift in pace. Has been engaged in the legal innovation community for a long time, but not specifically in a role. Someone like Rika, with that 15 plus years of legal experience, is generally going to be very good at strategic thinking and also engaging with strategic senior stakeholders. So you can see, obviously, with all these, we're talking about different levels and role types, but all different backgrounds, very, very valuable, beneficial members of a legal ops function or team. Let's think about Carlos. Carlos is also based on someone we know and love here. So has an engineering degree and very long-term roles at law firm, including a range of leadership roles, more recently in finance. Has the trust of everyone everywhere in the whole place, and can remember everything, every project, every issue, every problem that's occurred in the law firm for the last 19 plus years. And if you ask nicely, it probably still has the email record of it. Brings a huge wealth of internal knowledge, but that trust and the relationships and the context of the place you're working, as well as the financial commercial lens, amazing, super valuable skill set. Dana, I came across a Dana the other day, obviously a different name, was very impressed and excited by the energy. So this is someone fresh out of uni, did some data analytics because they found it interesting, just loves continuous improvement, just like passionate about everything to do with changing and making things better, very energetic and optimistic, and works super hard and has outstanding results. This is someone you want to find and keep and nurture forever if you possibly can. Then we've got a Sandeep, who mid-level lawyer looking for a change, really excited by innovation and process improvement. This is also based on someone in our team, very calm, very good with senior stakeholders, but also happy to muck in at any level. That's something I would say as well that I haven't mentioned about the legal ops industry as a whole, and everyone I've worked with is, first of all, everyone is lovely and loves to share and is really open to talking about legal ops because we're all passionate, but but also sharing information. It's sort of a low ego industry, I find, mostly. And secondly, like happy to work up and down the chain. So there's not that sense of, sorry, I won't get my hands dirty with that. And I think that's an important part of these roles, is while even those in the strategic levels, let's say you're a senior legal ops leader, there's still a sense sometimes you just got to go do something and get it done, because that's the thing that's going to have the most impact at the time. So that ability to work across levels of work is really valuable and important in these roles. Then we have someone like Zoe, who's been an executive assistant in a legal team for 5 years, so really gets the legal context. And this is so common, I can't tell you how many times we come across this, is actually the person managing everyone's workload in a horrible big old spreadsheet. If she wasn't there or something happened to Zoe, the whole legal team would stop functioning, because she actually holds the keys to the whole workflow analysis. And she can see better ways of doing things, but isn't quite sure, how that would work. Someone like Zoe, again, extremely valuable person who would be wonderful in a legal ops role. Then we have someone like a Joe, who coming to the end of studying a law degree and doesn't want to practice, but really interested in the industry and business. I'd say this is common of the people that we find that are legal ops grads, or certainly the ones we've had to date. Also, an interesting thing about someone like Joe is loves technology and has self-taught around coding and a whole lot of really exciting things like that. Again, a really exciting, interesting skill set to bring on board. Finally, someone like Emily, a bit different, but someone who's been a consultant in another area and with that change management and transformation lens, has some experience in law firms. Again, I think that's important, because we see consultants outside of legal, of course, are working with legal teams, but there's just something about, as I mentioned, the change management or transformation that's different and needs that legal touch. Also, Emily has project management qualifications and, has self-taught around the legal ops and legal tech industry. Emily, again, would be an extremely valuable resource for the legal ops team. Finally, and then hopefully time to answer some interesting questions if there are any. If you're someone that's looking to make the move, just some suggestions. And again, this is something that we'll get the legal ops leaders to share their thoughts on in the panel session. But I'd say first and foremost, get connected. LinkedIn is there's a wealth of information and forums around legal ops. Clock has so much material as well. As I said, these legal ops professions are very generous in sharing information. So I think you could spend weeks looking at it all. Trying to get some legal industry experience. So let's say you're saying, look, I know in a few years I want to be a legal ops professional. I can't see any jobs right now, but there is a role at a law firm in, as a business analyst or as a executive assistant or something I know that I'd be good at. I think that's great. I think, getting in the door and seeing how a legal industry works, getting the lingo, understanding the quirks of legal practice, super valuable as a precursor to finding a legal ops role. Amplify skills through certifications. So, I mentioned the toolkit, some of the key certifications are invaluable. Investing in some of those, like, for example, in my first job that turned into a legal ops job, the reason I got that is because I'd gone off and done Prince 2 project management training, and they wanted someone with that skill. I didn't necessarily use that skill in my job, but having that qualification was what got my resume on their desk and got me an interview. Then the other thing I'd just say is work out your secret sauce. So we're sharing this with someone the other day that, if I look at our head of legal ops at Minter Ellison, everyone is completely different backgrounds, different styles, different skill sets. Every single one of them does an awesome job. And it's not a matter of, Joe needing to be like Carlos, just that they have worked out what works for them and how they deliver well, and they're going with it. So it's just a matter of working out for yourself, what are the things that I am awesome at? How do I play to my strengths? I did say, it's a very friendly industry. It absolutely is, but it's also busy and noisy. Legal tech particularly, but also in the legal ops space as it grows and grows. There's a lot of people, in it, it sounds sometimes a bit impenetrable, like how could I possibly know everything, all the lingo, that person seems so experienced. I think it's just advice of not getting put off by that. If you're someone that's good with people, likes working with lawyers, is strategic, some of those other skills, you'll be great. It doesn't matter if you don't have all the fancy lingo. And the people skills are really important here. And I think if you feel like thinking about all this, that you like, oh, I don't actually like being front and center with people, then I think some of the more technical kind of options, you know, for example, automation or something where you're more specifically a subject matter expert in an area may be better, because this role is all people. It's all people. And then, you know, come to the next session to hear more from others around what they're doing and what their advice is. So with that, any questions or comments? I'll just put my details up while we're getting ready so you know how to contact me if you have any further questions.
Thanks, Molly. Another fabulous episode, and I can see that we've got some questions coming in, so folks, do please pop those in the Q&A. While folks are thinking about that, I wanted to ask you a question, if I may. You spoke about your legal ops folks being embedded in various business units throughout the business. And of course, that's one model, but the other one is that you're all collected together. Yes. Yeah. And I'm wondering if you could just take 2 secs or maybe 2 minutes to just chat about, you know, what are the pros and cons of that? Like the embedding model I can see, because almost by osmosis, you're helping to grow capabilities throughout. But I guess if it's a standalone, maybe not, it's easier to roll that into an external consulting model if you want to as well. And I'm sure there's lots of others, but just your thoughts around, you know, that structure.
Yeah, I think at Mentors we've seen, in fact, when I was at HSF, it was similar, that the embedded model in a law firm structure works fantastically. Obviously, it's a fairly resource-intensive model, so you have to be kind of willing to commit the resources and senior resources into each area. And if you're a law firm with, I don't know, 8 practice areas, that's getting pretty meaty. So, you know, a centralised model is also valuable, of course. And as you say, there's maybe some other, you know, elements around consistency or ways of doing things that is more beneficial. I think one way or another, however it's structured, there have to be trusted representatives that the senior partners can call. And I think that's why the embedded model does work. But either way, need to know that trusted, you know, a senior partner trusts this function and knows who to call to ask the question and to get some help. And however that's done, I think that's the critical piece of it, really, regardless of the structure.
And great communication within the team, I guess.
Definitely.
You know, however, that kind of helps with that a lot as well. Yep. We've got a question here, and it's one that comes up often, and we hear it often at the centre as well, which is, you know, when you're looking at pay scales or salaries for legal ops professionals, because as we've been discussing over a couple of episodes now, the function really is growing into a career path. That's but right. there is no pay scale that you can really look at that is about legal ops professionals. So do you have any thoughts or advice about, you know, what comparable roles could you be looking at, or what sort of surveys are out there that might assist in trying to work that out?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I think some of there may be, I haven't dug into it, but for example, CLOC may very well have some resources. You know, the CLOC forum, the memberships, you know, it's a paid membership, but the forums there are extremely valuable. So just in terms of asking a question like that, I think in terms of the pay scale, you know, senior legal ops professionals need to really be pitched as like almost special counsel kind of level, like in terms of getting that trust and support from the partnership. There's got to be that, or you know, or in a in-house team, there's got to be some recognition that there's the senior leadership and then there's heads of legal ops. I would say that the pay scale shouldn't be horrendously different to legal kind of, as you got, there should be movement up as there is in legal. So I would say the starting salary shouldn't really differ from a graduate starting salary in the legal profession. And then I think depending on whether you're in a law firm or whether you're in-house is probably a bit quirkier in the sense that you're not able to pin against others. But I suppose going back to that business case piece I spoke around earlier is being really savvy around saying, listen, this is what I'm worth because I'm going to save you 4 FTE. So why wouldn't you pay me one of those full FTE? So it doesn't really answer your question because as I think you said, there's not clear benchmarks, but I would say these roles are in hot demand. So there's very few senior legal ops professionals really, like as a cohort, and people are wanting to build, law firms are wanting to build out their legal ops teams in-house as well. So it's a competitive market, which means there's room for negotiation around pricing, around your value.
And I guess what we're seeing, and just to get your thoughts, draw your thoughts on this a little bit, is that, a number of years ago, if folks were not working as lawyers, so may have a law degree, but not working as lawyers, but working in other specialist roles within the firm, there was a differential based on whether you had a law degree or you didn't. And, what we're seeing is that differential no longer exists. It's all based on skills and capabilities to get this job done. And as you say, increasingly don't need a law degree. And I guess some that we've seen a comparison with is looking at other specialist roles. So maybe looking at legal technologists or whatever to try and get that gauge. Those two bits kind of realistic from your point of view as well?
I think so, yeah. And I think, realistically there's a cap on it in the sense that unless you're fee earning, like in a law firm structure, a fee earner at the end of the day is going to keep growing the more fees they earn, right? But as a cost center role, other specialties, I think that's right. But I think also there's something around, particularly the structures where you're embedded with that senior partnership, that having that respect and that connection really supports, I suppose, the business case for getting a strong salary, because you're sort of seen as part of a leadership team, which brings with it the benefits of improved salary.
And you're a critical part of the team to produce that revenue as well.
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah. So you can sort of link. There's a close link between your role and the revenue. Yeah.
I've got one more question here that I'm going to squeeze in before we end. And it is, what challenges face the legal professional lawyers in accepting legal ops as part of their team in delivering value to clients?
It's a great question. Yeah. Look, I think like any change, this is change. And I think for some, it depends again on how those relationships are built. But for some legal teams, if someone's coming in and saying, I'm going to tell you how to do things better, that's not going to go down very well. So there is a sense of the balance between providing support and providing challenge to the way work's done. And I think, obviously that can be confronting. There's also, I suppose, sometimes a question of like, well, if they make everything too efficient, what does that mean for my role? I don't want to be automated away into nothingness. So sometimes I suppose there's some underlying fear there. But then I think the other challenge is simply if the legal team's too busy, they're probably too busy to really focus on the legal ops person that's come into the team, unless that person's helping reduce the busyness to then refocus them. So sometimes I think it's simply that they just don't have time to lift their heads and notice there's a new person around more than anything else.
Yeah. And I always think with that as well, Molly, that, at some point in time, the client won't pay for the busyness because there's a better, cheaper and faster way to do it, So there's that aspect to it as well, right? But
yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Again, fabulous session. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for attending. And Molly mentioned, and I just want to underscore that third and final episode on legal ops with the panel on the 29th of March. So for those that have been following this, just also a quick reminder that starts a little bit earlier on the 29th of March. That's at 10 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Time. So please be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook or Twitter, and Molly too, in terms of information with respect to that and some reminders as well. The last thing that I just wanted to mention to everyone is we will be featuring Legal Ops as a new law career along with 7 others in what I'm delighted to announce as the College of Law Centre for Legal Innovation New Law Careers Summit, and that will be on May 16 and 17. And Molly will be back chatting with us, obviously, about legal ops at that time as well. So do come along and explore a whole bunch of additional opportunities in those new laws or with those new law careers as well in May. So again, Molly, thank you so much.
My pleasure, as always.
And we'll see you back for the continuation of Legal Ops March.
Yes.
At the end of the month. And
the panel will be fabulous. I recommend everyone to join. It's going to be great.
The panel is outstanding, and we hope that we'll see all of you back here then as well. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.